Hi. It's been a while, but that does, of course, doesn't mean nothing has happened. But it's been more under the hood things that is not so much visual. So I haven't been so much tempted to make a video, maybe. But maybe let's go through a few of the things, maybe the most interesting things. Yeah, let's go to the GUI stuff first to get that out of the window. Let me see, compile as a standalone. Okay, let me go this first. Hide the things. As usual, this. Let me see. Did I compile it? Let me see. Okay, I double check if I compile as a buffered or unbuffered. That's a new thing. Anyway, this not very much visual things. It's, let me see here. I have a little list. I have every widget that is connected to a parameter. Like these are 8 parameters I'm testing. I can now double click to set back to default value, which is nice, of course. What? And actually, every widget can have double clicking, but just set it up so that it's automatic. I think it's auto restore. There's a flag involved anyway to make it easy to set up. So it maybe the snapping things, maybe it's not as needed anymore. Now I can double click to get it back. But that's a nice thing. And another thing is this right click menu on, this is just a humbug menu. This is just testing on certain, not certain, whatever widget you decide. I just set it up to the header here, and this footer part has this context menu, and I open like then I can have this menu, which is just like normal, just similar to the menu popping up here, but I don't do this overlay thing. So now you can just set a menu to whatever widget, and then it pops up. I'm going to add a few things like the menu system should ask the widget kind of if it has some additional parameters and stuff, and then we could also incorporate the clap menu system into this context menu system into all of this. That's an idea. But anyway, to have a pop-up menu, that's the important thing, because a lot of widgets absolutely need a pop-up menu. Just let me comment what I actually mentioned here, so I don't do it. I've been doing a little bit more with this dual slider thing because I needed it for the sabotage plugin. I know since this is meant to represent a range, a minimum to maximum value, it actually it's not forced to be to do it, but that's kind of what it's meant to do. So it was kind of stupid if this could cross into so that the max value was less than the minimum value, for example. So I added this thing that it bang stops when you crash into the other widget. You can't go past it unless you hold either Shift or Alt. Shift means no snapping, just like no snapping in this case here. This doesn't snap at all when I drag it, so it ignores all kind of snapping. Also, this you see this stepping here. Also, if you hold Shift, it doesn't step. So Shift means no snapping. Well, in this case, it actually just crosses over. But as you can see, they change which one I'm editing. So now I always edit the right one here is always editing the right parameter, or what if it's connected to a parameter, and the left one. So if I cross it, they just change places. So now you see they're always editing the right one, and same thing, you can go kind of back and forth if you want. So this always represent a valid range, which could possibly be 0, but it's not minimum is never larger than maximum, that kind of stuff. And another thing I added was if you hold Alt, you push the other value instead, and then you could drag. But it could be a nice way to just set up a range, for example, which is and then to fill it out properly, for example. So okay, that was the dual slider, and the final kind of. There's been a few small tweaks like the bordering and stuff and kind of stuff, or an alignment and stuff. But another interesting thing is maybe this node widgets here, which is inside a node editor widget, so that we have this, so that we have, for example, scroll bars work properly, for example, so I can scroll and pick it up again. It works kind of similar to this older or previous, I call this just a graph, I think, which is kind of a weird name. No, it's not a weird name, but it's ambivalent maybe. But I wanted this, but I want more control over the widgets themselves here. These are now just a part of the main one single widget which does everything here, this graph widget. I want, for example, to have some buttons inside of it, for example, whatever, and so I started working on splitting them up and have as you can see here, this is a new thing. I call it a node graph. This is the container, and then there are node widgets inside of it. So these are now separate widgets, and I can do all the normal widget things, everything here, which probably can be resized, for example, and all this resizing thing. It can be moved around, and that's what I actually do. This is movable. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Additionally, the node editor part actually takes care of the connectioning between them. So that's drawn with the node editor, but the node inside of it is just regular widget. So as you can see here, this gray area on top, it's actually this a darker area, entire thing, which is a widget, but on top of it there is this normal gray, average gray, which is just a widget, so you can do whatever. In this case, I just added some knobs. I can add all this can use. You can have tabs inside of it. You could make it movable, sizable, and all that kind of stuff. You can have that inside of this every single widget. And then I can connect them as I can with the other stuff and move them around. I have the scroll bars works, except a little weird thing. The scroll bars, I meant actually they are kind of weird. The value inside always from 0 to 1. 0, 1. That's not, and it can't go negative, which means, and then I scale it up with the width of the widget, so it's kind of related and unrelated on at the same time, kind of. But which means if I drag the position of the to negative values, we can't make make space before 0. So what I do, I just push all the other ones instead. So I kind of cheat a little bit, but it's kind of funny. But it still works exactly the same way. So now I can scroll as usual, but when I drag, you see it all scrolls back, so it's a bit. But anyway, the point is to get be possible to get to actually move and do stuff with the widgets. But I'm going to look into it. I'm going to think about allowing negative positions. But the 0 to 1 position is so nice when I do this scaling and zooming stuff. For example, if I set this to in the middle here, and if I scale up this position, you see it keeps to the center, no matter what. And also if I kept to the bottom, it stays to the bottom. And if I have it to the top, it stays to the top. So it's nice to kind of control how to zoom a little bit. So the 0 to 1, I like it, but anyway, that's a thing. That's a new thing. I want to work much more on this. Send feedbacks, I mean the callbacks when I connect and disconnect and that kind of stuff, for example, so that your plugin itself can do something with the actual nodes here. And these could be connected to parameters. It could be just a part of plugin. You could have a part of a synth, and you can configure them in the order you want. For example, I was thinking about using this for the Landsman wrapper. But I want to kind of upgrade a bit, but having each of these being a Landsman plugin. For example, having an open-close button additional, so you could open and close them. Kind of similar to this, open closing, but not the animation and not the visuals, but able to how should I say, close up them. Similar, so they look more like, like this, when they are collapsed. And you can kind of click to open them up, and they look like here instead. And it's the idea. On another thing, especially these one with the vertical pins, the horizontal, the vertical ones. I think maybe you should draw the pin, move them a little bit down, and draw the pin names. You see, when I hover over things here, there's the footer, which is set to be the hint receiver kind of stuff, in a way. It always draws the bit what the mouse is hovering over. Usually just the name on the widget, which I just set up as default. But in this case, I set it to draw you see here, the windows, input and outputs of the pins. Very simple at the moment, but this could be just as well be drawn here, for example, to have left and right and gain, volume, for example, or whatever. So that's more or less main stuff about one other thing, so it's interesting. The buffering. Oh, what escape? Oh, I also work a little bit more about the buffering, the buffered window here. Let me compile it. The difference is that if you have the buffer, we set up additional buffer in the background, in the memory, like a render target or whatever you want to call it. It's a buffer, and we always paint to that buffer all the time instead of painting to the editor or screen all the time. And we always keep that one updated all the time, so that when the OS or system asks us to paint something with an expose or WM paint in Windows, asks us to draw a part, you just copy from this buffer to a screen, which means we can just update the little part that has to actually change all the time. For example, let me compile it. Okay, did I compile it? I did. Doesn't really matter, sure. Now this is drawn buffered instead of, which means there's a little bit more housekeeping in the background going on. We have this off-screen buffer, which is on the GPU, so there's a bit of communication stuff going on, so it takes a little bit more time and stuff, I guess. Also, or additionally, we have to always keep this buffer large enough to actually be, so that there's actually pixels to draw to. So when you resize the window, you have to do some resizing of this buffer and to constantly do for every pixel, reallocate a new memory is not a good thing. So we do it's power of two things for the width and height. So we also allocate big enough but scale up to the next power of two, and only resize it when it crosses one of these lines, back and up and down. So it's not too much allocation and deallocation, and it seems to work really well, but there is some, we have to do it a lot. It's obviously a bit work to do in the background. I guess my GPU is probably angry now. But anyway, that's the buffering part. It kind of works, but there is some peculiarities, or what shall I say, I'm not sure if I call it bugs or things I haven't really thought about much. As for example, you see here the clipping. I have to change the clipping scheme or system a little bit, because every widget now there's an auto clipping going on with so the parent kind of clips itself, then draws set a clip rectangle around itself, then it draws all the sub widgets. So that, for example, this graph here, very obviously here, this here, when it's kind of outside of it, it's already set the clipping rectangle to be actually here. What did I talk about? And this, but this is kind of like, because this timeline stuff here is ugly as hell. There's a combination of how this GUI is set up and how this clipping stuff is handled. So I can be a little bit careful and arrange the widget a little bit different in the widget hierarchy, so that the clipping rectangle for the parent kind of is still active before drawing and kind of stuff, or I should change it a little bit to be more aggressive with clipping. So every time I widget it, let me think. Actually, it's very simple. This one, This one just handle the clipping rectangle itself. So you see, it just set this clipping rectangle to itself. Fine. Because I have a stack, a clip rect stack is called. It's just like a stack with rectangles. And every time I want to clip to a new rectangle, I go through the hierarchy to paint. I push another one, push the previous current one to the stack, and then I set a new clipping rectangle. And then I go out of the rectangle to a widget to paint the next one. I can pop it back and use the previous clipping, so it can go all in and out of widget kind of stuff. There's some issues with that when doing repainting, as you can see here. And but what the other thing there was, and you also see the painting here. It flashes. Hope if unless the YouTube compression gets rid of it. You also see it when I had the menu. You see it when I go up and down here. Oh, you see it flashes up. And the same thing with everything, all including. So that's because this here. I'm not sure why this is flashing actually. Because this doesn't. Oh, but anyway, that's a few. I think it has something to do with like some big clipping thing. That's one thing I have to fix, of course. But other than that, the buffered version seems to work pretty well. But I haven't tested it because there's some additional work to do compared to just drawing it directly. Because you have it just not buffered. It just draw directly to the screen, or you draw the entire GUI over and over again from scratch every time. And since we have this timer going on with this animation here, or it will redraw the entire GUI 50 times. At that moment, set 50 times a second. And it's still, actually, the most CPU here is OBS recording. But still it uses, I don't know actually what's the badness, because there's a lot of extra stuff to do. You have to keep track of this buffer, resize it and all that kind of stuff. You have to draw everything to it. You have to do that anyway. But the drawing is a little bit less because you have to draw only the change parts. But then you have to copy to the screen. And all this housekeeping, and I also have to do, since we can't have a bunch of threads to the writing to this buffer at the same time, that will mess up everything, especially since we are completely lock-free. So it's a bit dangerous in that regard. So we have to do some queuing. That's to the redraw queuing and what I call the realign queuing. For example, if I resize something, for example this one, the other widgets have to do move too. So there has to be some realigning. Well, I think in the word is called reflow or something. Not really sure. And depending on whatever things are connected to, the parent has to be realigned. For example, this here. This is a typical realign thing. A lot of that stuff has to be handled in a other way when buffering versus unbuffering, so I need to test it. But the safest thing is actually unbuffer, then redraw everything 50 times. The problem is, of course, you have to redraw buffers and the text and everything. And if you have big stuff, so then it can use a bit CPU, but I don't know. It gives for both pluses and minuses, but maybe we should add functionality to both all the sides for potential performance things. Like one thing I've been thinking about is have some kind of background layer, and you can specify in some of the widgets, for example, that they are actually meant to be the background. They will never change. Like headlines, heads, not maybe here, but in a typical plugin you have this oscillator 1, oscillator 2, gain, hertz, frequency. And these never change. They could actually be just prepared ones to a kind of background buffer or a off-screen buffer or a cached video buffer or something. And then you could just copy it when needed. And in that case, the redrawing wouldn't be much different than the buffered version actually, because you have a separate buffer, which is all the static things, and then you could just draw the dynamic things on top of them. for example. That's the one idea. Anyway, another thing I want to do when I first am looking at the GUI here, I want to work more on this tweening stuff. Now that this works actually two aspects of it, but it's actually just one tweening functionality. You can tween the rectangle of a widget, which means the size and position of it. And you can kind of tween. Tweening is actually short for in between. So kind of interpolate. You interpolate all the four values actually just very simple. So you could have sizes and positions and that kind of a lot of stuff. Here, and additionally, you can set up a chain of from to positions, so you can have almost a spline or a series of moves. You can move down and upward, or you could move down and scale up, for example. And each of these interpolations or movements or scalings can also have a, what is it called? It's called a easing functionality to it. And in this call, I set it to something called bounce in and bounce out. So boing, boing, boing. You could set it to linear, or you can have to boom, or you could boom. You can be very fluid, like whoosh, flow in it. So it looks more not natural. So every kind of tweening in this chain has a different, so easy. So you could set up whatever, almost. I think it's more almost 50 of these tween easing types. But that said, the tweening at the moment is just the position and size. What I want, and it's hard coded to be the rectangle position size. Additionally, the tweening command, or the function, the event, I call it, it's not really an event, but you can kind of think of it as an event. It's generated for every tick of a timer, which is sent to the widget that is being tweened, and where you can kind of look into the commands and then compare them, and you can do stuff yourself inside of that one. For example, change the background color or the border widths. You could do a bunch of stuff in there. Whatever number you have, you can be interpolated between two numbers. Anyway, which could be open up for a bunch of possibilities, like these could slide and everything. That's a thing I think can be interesting. Another interesting thing, maybe this is overlay thing here. Where as you can see, when I click, only this part which is not the menu is not darkened like the rest. And this is just very simple. It's just a not really it is a widget, but it kind of fills the entire screen always. No, it's not actually. It's not. It is. I just set it to automatically fill the screen in this case. But and actually it's manually for every widget. In this case, this widget here is called a selector. So what should be? I meant to, because I want to select among a few things. It could be just a pop-up menu, drop-down box in many names. But since I want to select them, I do a pop-up a menu. The first thing I do is change the color of this overlay to just be less transparent actually. So it's dark, it's black all the time, but it's usually fully transparent. But when I click this menu, I set this overlay color to a little bit more transparent, or almost transparent. And then I draw this, this overlay layer on top of everything. This is just a widget as anything else, so I can just add another widget to it, like this menu. So that's why this menu is not colored, because this overlay is kind of behind the menu. So you can have two layers. You have this, I call it a root, which is the entire thing of the window. And then I can change a bunch of widgets to the root, and then I have this overlay, and I can have a bunch of widgets to this overlay. I am thinking about why do I have just two? Why can I have this user configurable? So I can have just a bunch of layers, and then I can just decide in the widgets themselves what they want to do with the different layers. I can attach different widgets to different layers, turn them on and off, visible, non-visible. Maybe I could use one layer to just draw a selection rectangles like this one here. Oh no, I have this here, for example. That could be an overlay. But that's an idea. There's now overlay things could be expanded Another or more things I want to do with the widgets is have it every widget could have an additional scale or zoom. I call it maybe a scale because the window has a scale now, so you can scale it up and down the entire thing, but it still keeps the aspect ratio or the original setting. But additionally, each widget should have an individual scale. And it's very simple, just you multiply with a global or a window scale. And so 1 is a default. If you set it to 2, then it would kind of scale by 2 everything inside of it. And I just have to adapt the layout thing to take the scaling into account every time I realign the subwidgets. That should be pretty simple. And when, let me see what, and when I'm painting, I want to know what, for example, what kind of font size it want to paint with and that kind of stuff. So it should be pretty easy and should make it possible to, for example, in this I could hold, for example, Control and scroll wheel to zoom in and out of it, this specifically widget and not the other thing. And I can actually in theory do this for everything, but it shouldn't be too hard to do that. I just need to have a use case and motivation actually. But that's an idea I've been thinking about. And the clipping stuff I mentioned, which is more or less everything on the GUI stuff. A lot of tweaking and stuff, but like it's many widgets is minimal and just barely started. Like this main menu, this is just a main menu, but I haven't I don't open the menus actually. I use the file menu, and this is the and so almost an edit menu. I just appended them to this instead. This could just open up if I click this instead of open here. And that kind of stuff. A lot of, what should I say, in progress things, but I think the plugins themselves want to have individual widgets. So I will wait until I'm actually using them to, I'm doing it bit by bit. I mean, I don't really want to show the stacking, which could be nice for just filling up the rest of the space with a bunch of widgets. Each of these has some separate widgets, so it could be whatever. Here they are just knobs to test because it took just because it was a simple for loop to add a bunch of test widgets. But it could be whatever. It could be an icon like in the file explorers. It could be, I don't know, anything to stack them up in different ways. For example, a file browser could use these, like in these. Let's see here. The best one would be probably be vertical like this. It could be text lines instead, like this one here. And it could just stack up until there's not more space. Then they could continue in the next column. So you can have different columns of text just by bunching, stuffing the text item into a widget, and the widget itself arranges them like this. It could be interesting. Let me see. Is there more interesting parts here? New things? No. That's the GUI part. Another part is more code stuff. It's code related. Let me open the synth I am working on to show it kind of stuff, so that I remember also myself. All the plugins I kind of extracted out the audio and event handling completely now. So that is all this is the audio and event is automatically kind of sent over to the processor, and it handles everything. Here's the events kind of stuff, and here's input audio, and here's get me audio out. So that we can have different processors. And you see, I do it a little bit templated it, like I'm almost kind of, what should I say, approaching modern C++. But this is how far I'm taking it. This is a voice processor. I have a bunch of processors in, let's see, not a bunch of, a few. Here, I have a block processor, interleave processor, and a quantized processor, which means how the events are interleaved between the audio processing. audio block processor, I mentioned it in the early videos, I think, but quickly, the block processor handles all events at the beginning of the block and then copies everything as one bang big block, the audio. The interleaved is sample accurate events and then calculates the audio in between them as different level sizes blocks. And the quantized is similar block sizes and then handles the events in between these. So all the events for the next, for example, 32 samples, for example, is handled, then 32 samples. Then the events, potentially, maybe none, and then the samples. And so that is a process. And then additionally, I have this voice processor, which I did a few other things. It prepares the events first. And it does a bunch of voice things, and it's kind of deep actually. So because I have set up for threading and that kind of stuff, so it's a bit a lot of cues as a bunch in each voice and a template. So it's a bit but this handles the voices, separate voices, so that finally you can actually separate everything about as one single voice in an other class again. So this voice, so the only reason I don't actually need to override this voice processor here, I just want to scale the output buffer before I kind of give it back. So here call the previous one, and then I just scale the stereo buffer just to have this global gain. I can call that standalone version a bit. That's also showing a little bit about the new stuff. Synth. It is a combination of the Samael synth, which I call this version 2. That's called the previous, currently only named synth. And also about the earlier synth I had with some resonators, or I don't know the proper name of that kind of stuff. A delay, almost like a comb filter. It's a delay lane tuned to the, but it's tuned to the pitch of the current playing note for that voice. So at 404, and so it's a similar. So actually, the delay length is exactly one cycle, and it's a fractional delay line. So it's all exactly, not very exactly, but it's not the int based, a little bit shaky comb filtering or this carpless loud strong thing, which get the auto tune, which would play high notes. It's very quite nice in the interpolation. But then there's a feedback loop in this, so it can be feedback up, so it kind of builds up to, so it resonates in the frequency or the playing note kind of stuff. So what I get is typical a carpless strong, or this plucked string dong sound. You just first feed it with noise, until it fills the buffer, and then it sets the delay line into motion, and in this delay loop there is a filter, which I call in this case damping. So for every time, boom, 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 so it filters more and more and more, typical like how normal instrument, not but boom, they fade out more like that high frequencies die out earlier than the lower frequencies. So we get a very, call it like a guitar string, dong, plucked sound out of it. And then you can do more with these delays type of things. You could have multiple taps in it. You could have different offsets tapping to simulate this. I don't know, that's the kind of waveguide thing. Additionally, you could feed other things that noise into it. You can, in this case, you can feed other oscillators. So you have a square wave instead. Let's start with that one, which evolves over time. And also you can have the output to it to feed another oscillator and, for example, phase modulate the oscillator one, and for example, for resonator 1. So it's actually, so it kind of, you can all do this feedback in between two resonators and two oscillators with phase modulation, amplitude modulation, and it's going to be more here. And resonators, I want to be, that's just my first idea. The pluck is a typical gong. That's, as I mentioned earlier, that carpet strong thing. But I'm looking into more proper, or doing it more properly, what they call this waveguide thing. This usually they set up 2 delay lines, one here, one there. That's kind of visual, but and each from half of the frequency of the note. So it's doing, and then doing, one below and one top, kind of stuff. And they have the inverted signals in between them, so they go kind of looping around and get in, and then you have a kind of tap or pluck position, depending, and you read from both buffers, one going in this direction and one going in another direction. But read and bang both of them and sum them, and that's the output. But delay lines in a backward direction sounds a bit weird when you're doing this feedback delay thing here. So I thought about just inverting this and doing some trickery with 2 taps instead. One halfway, 0 to halfway, and one other one from opposite direction. So it kind of simulates that, but it's wrapped up. So I'm experimenting a little bit with it. I won't call it a resonator. We may call it some funky name. But that has nothing with the toolkit actually. That's processor-ish thing. Okay. So that's a processor. So I have this voice processor, which handles all the so you actually your plugin. If you can, let me go to the voice file instead. Let me see. As you can see, you typecast it with the, or not typecast it, you template it with this your voice class here, and then maximum number of voices. So let's see if you can find it. So if you're making your synth yourself, you can just set up one of these voices, and it's very simple. Actually, you have this class. It's nothing, no virtual, nothing, everything. It's templates. You have this init function where you get some weird function. This is the index of your voice in the global list of available voices. So you always know where you are in the different buffering positions. And here you get some voice context, which is some specific things you are given, like the sample rate and a bunch of stuff, other stuff. Here you by the way, here read about sample rate. And then you initialize everything, and then you get voice levels. It's used for the envelope stuff to know when the voice is finished. As soon as you return below a certain value here, this voice is turned off. And then you react to events, node on, you index a value, very simple, this is a key, and then it's a velocity. Node off, same thing, key and velocity. Node choke here, I don't do anything here. Node expression, here you get the expression type and the expression value. Parameters, I don't do anything specific here because I handle them directly. But you also get the parameter index, that's an important thing. I haven't really decided how to do this indexing versus parameter ID. So currently I'm doing it in the old school fashion, but it's based on the index. So the parameter ID is identical with the parameter index. So the first parameter always has an index 0. I'm thinking about adding a kind of remap functionality into and out of this list kind of stuff, when I get and set ID here and there, to remap from this index to ID, or maybe I should start, because this index keeps things very much easier here and there. But anyway, parameter index, the value, the new value. This is called exactly when it's happening, so it's in a correct, or not correct, but the right position. So you just set the value, no caching and stuff needed. You just set. So kind of you can think of it as this is happening now. All of this kind of stuff. That's over all this for different processor types, like block or interleaved and quantized comes into play when these events are called relative to the audio or audio bits. And here's a processing one little tiny slice of that full buffer for this processor, and for this voice actually. So it has to do some trickery to get the position in a bigger array. We actually calculate each voice is calculated to its own position so that they don't mess with each other's buffers, which is not too smart in a multi-threading thing. And then we just go to it parameter, fill it up. Just fill in. Now we have a buffer which is a sample, which is actually a float pointer, and you just fill it up. In our case, we are always calculating voice as mono. But in the end, we are converting it to stereo, and then we do some effects on it, that part. But that's all, everything. On the, of course, you have an additional thing, which I haven't started using yet, which I use this quantize. I'm doing some experimenting with some optimized processing, with some hard-coded line loop sizes, and a simmed thing, and buffered a line to cache lines, or cache bigger, what's it called? We have a bunch of cache, we have a cache line of 64 bytes and have up to 4 kilobytes of a cache, call it a block. You can align things to make speed things up a little bit, because the processor always loads a full one of these and then smaller pieces, so you can kind of keep that in mind when you set up the processing and start using almost hard-coded constants and positions within buffers, instead of doing all this pointer walking and cache thrashing. So, but anyway, currently I just cheat or ignore it by just calling back into the normal. Everything else is internal. So that's the only functionality you need in a voice. And then you have everything. You have multi-voices, you have voice stealing, you have multi-voice overlapping, node end, so you can do polyphonic modulation and everything. All handled here. So this is called whenever there is a new modulation setting, for example, for your specific voice. So you ignore everything else. So there's no ifing or checking or anything. To make it simple. And that's all this templating stuff is doing. So there's the use of voice SAT voice, and there's an SAT voice processor, and there's your own. Because the voice stuff is done more or less the same way. You can see here you also have this template. I don't want virtual functions down on the sub per sample or say slices of the buffers. When I come down to the audio processing, then we kind of start thinking more about performance than convenience, actually. So that's some alignment stuff, avoid stuff here. Not weird stuff, but okay, so that's processor, and one interesting side effect of that part is that I'm starting to think about a threaded here, but I'm also going to add in a multiprocessor, which could give it a list of processors, and the multiprocessor takes care of just calling all of them. Because it's interesting, because all plugins, I have an example here now. Let's see plugins here. First is the internal synth, all this SA stuff, and also these ports. I have ported a bunch of Ladspa and not much Ladspa actually. Yes, a Sonic I mean, and some bunch of foreign postings and all kinds of stuff to simple tests plugins to both to check if the framework or toolkit is usable during the development, and also because I thought it would be nice to have them available like small utility plugins. But the interesting part is that all of them are now compiled as processors. So I could, in a multiprocessor plugin, I could just use since all of them are now processors. Additionally, they are reusable much more easier. And even for example, I need a reverb, for example, and then we have this reverb. It takes a much, but where is it? And here is the actual reverb class itself, but then we have this processor set up here. Maybe you could even template this actually. Maybe you could hard code it and use a macro or something. I don't, because this is kind of optional. You could change this to a block processor without messing up things, probably. So that's a nice thing with the processors. I think they are more, everything is more generic and can be reused, which is nice. For example, in the synth I showed you, I want to add in another row here for more global things like effects. And have, for example, reverb, chorus, maybe distortion even, maybe. But I'm thinking about the possibilities of having polyphonic effects. So that, special things like distortion can be very different if you distort every separate note and then combine them, or if you combine the voices then distort it, because they are how they interact with each other and stuff. So I'm not really sure at the moment, but there will be effects here, and I will probably dive into these and find stuff here and then start adding more to find the kind of typical. That's why I've started to add some phase and stuff to experiment a little bit with the. And we can add another thing with the modular stuff or the node editor stuff in the demo thing I showed earlier. Each of these modules could be one of these modules, or processors, I mean. So that could be nice, maybe, probably, happily, maybe. Oh. More internal things. The key threading / queuing part is changed quite a bit. Hard to show probably because it's so interleaved in the lower levels. But interestingly, the plugin now has a separate file called plugin queues, and I think the GUI is doing the same. GUI queues, yes. And I've changed, no, like the plugin, but not the plugin base, not the compositor, but the plugin to use this Moody Camel queues instead of our own thing that I never felt 100% sure that it was actually working properly. And nowadays, now at the moment when someone is actually trying to compile this on ARM processors, and I have no idea how the binary stuff, how compatible it is with x86. So I started to get a little bit, not skeptical maybe, but sort of think about it. So I decided to look more into lock-free queues and stuff, and I found this single writer queue, which is really fast and should be quite safe, but I feel much safer about it. But it also has this multi-producer, multi-consumer queue in this in the repository, and I started to experiment it, which gave paved the way to the thread pool thing internally, which is another new thing, because it's very easy to make a thread pool thing when you have all this queuing stuff taken care of properly. Let's see if I can find it. See, it is very little actually. A util, I think. This is everything, and you see all the green stuff is comments. It's not, so this you see actual code is very little. And this is fully compatible with the clap Red Bull actually. So as you can see, you have a request exec. It's exactly like the call in process and you call for a clap, which I actually makes it very simple to do stuff like I show you. No, it's not a plugin. It's moved out now to the processor, of course. Processor at the bottom here, if I'm not completely wrong. Nope, no pool in this one. Then, of course, no, I'm stupid again. It's a voice processor. F3. Oh, we got to the bottom. I think it's at the bottom. Here, very simple. So we have to hide everything in the if def, so forget about that one. Here we try the clap pool first. So if it is true, if we try to find it, I mean, else we set up our own. So we have an if step around which one we're going to use, and where are we? Trade pool access. Let me see. This is our own. Let me see. Oh, okay. I don't want to care about it. It is identical API as the clap thread pool, so I can use the if the clap tool thread pool succeeded, and say okay. If not succeeded, I try my own, and if that one not succeed, then I do this linear. Which, and the threading stuff is that's why I hide it behind this if-def stuff, because I should undo closing. That could be really nice. Because maybe some plugins don't need this threading, and we just mess up with the host threading if I try to do all these small test things in one multi-threading setting. So I want to be able to disable it too. So, but that's a new thing, that threading thing, thread pool. The buffering I was already mentioned in the GUI part. There's some minimal cmake stuff here, as you can see. I'm not using it myself. This was more for testing, and I see that it do. Let me see. This every time it starts up, probably because I have this and have the cmake extension here. But as you can see here, it enables this, and now I can just let me try it. Build. What happened? Did I build it? Yes, finish with no errors, and I can just run it. So it can now I can comfortable use it. This is made via cmake, so but in cmake the options are in this stuff here, and as you can see, I'm not very good at this. I set a hard code on it. So maybe you should do it more flexible, like all this we have options we have in this build compile scripting things. But I use this compile script, but it's here. But now I can actually do visual debug, which could be nice. Launch debugger, for example. And now I can start to step through things and set breakpoints and all that kind of stuff, which is nice, much nicer in my eyes, this GDB standard, which is I never use. What is that? Customize, okay. So that is nice for those that like, maybe we could absolutely need some help setting these up properly, because they are now just experimental, but now we have cmake, that's the point. And as I mentioned, I'm working on this new synth. Maybe I shouldn't go into it at the moment because it's in progress. So let's wait. I added a bunch of ports, which means ported plugins. Ported for me is Sonic and all kind of stuff. And I that the thing that could be interesting is how I put it inside one clap plugin. Here's everything you need to do to have a plugin with a bunch of other plugins inside of it. It's almost nothing, as you can see. Why? Okay, because I forget about this. This is more because my code is not compatible with every version of new and delete, because the overall mem tracer is a bit not the best one, so I actually just undef it. ugly hack. But anyway, I have this is kind of a secret to it, and additionally how every entry points to all plugins are set up with this if-def around it. This is the one how to do it with a single plugin, and this is how to do it with multiple plugins. Then you can just call that set a register to register the plugins in the order you want them in the plugin, and then you have create plugin to actually return a new instance of each in the same order. And that's all you have to do. Everything else is the same as regular clap, actually. Single plugins, because all the entry stuff we have in our file, of course. So it's very simple to like make plugins. You don't actually know, almost don't need to do anything. You just, in my case, I just follow a few simple rules, like this, how this entry point is set up, and that's kind of it. But of course, because this is, no, that's a new thing. And the synth I showed you. Yet another possibly interesting thing is, let's just see what's it. Okay, reverb. If we compile this one, let me see, where are we? No, I'm still debugging. Am I? Oh, we're on the wrong terminal. So we compile, let's enter it. No, that became much smaller one. That is a lot smaller one. I like this. Pitch shift is a minimal. It's not really a pitch shift. It's trying to be a pitch shifter. There's no sign of a GUI thing in here. There's no editor, no nothing. It doesn't say anything about any editor at all. But when you compile, let's see, make sure that we're compiling the right one. No. We compile now, of course. Stupido again. We are in. No, we are going this after the build directory, of course. No, bin. This is where we want the plugin. Oh, sorry. Where's the build here? Let me see. So we compile a plugin, no traces of GUI code at all, but then which will give us this stuff. Just a generic GUI that you can always add to your plugins. This is okay, works enough. It's not the best looking ones, of course, but they work. They also will draw the modulation around it. They will draw the parameter indication in case to connect to the parameter indication. They will draw automation state, recording, playing. It is resizable. It has all this clap functionality, like voice stacking, and it's not a plugin. Of course, it's an effect. But and you almost only have to actually, the main thing you have to do actually is to make your own processor part, which describes what to do when you process audio and when you process events and blah blah. And here you see how we get the parameter values. We could have an enum, for example, in here, like I do. So there's some, as you can see, a generic editor now, so we can get started really quickly. I have another one. I just came to my mind. I have done kind of this compositer, which is another JSONic plugin converted. Actually, this commented stuff here is, as you can see, setup editor. One function is, but I commented it out now, plus, where is it? Set initialize editor size here. But without it, let me see that I compile compositer. I get this default editor. It's like this here. 5 parameters, and this all works. We could do just now. We have a simple editor. It does not. Or OBS doesn't like my resizing. Or is it? What is it? Anyway, but if you go into it and start doing some figures, first you have to tell it your initial size and your initial scaling. Currently I don't care about DPI or anything. I just set to 1. And if it's proportional scale or not. This is only interesting if you create this as a clap plugin, because I haven't added in the proportional stuff in the standalone. Let me see, and then you have to add a function. No, you do not have to. You can compile it without it. See what's happening. But now you see the sizes are 5T10 by 340. And now it's actually, I think it should be 510 by 340. I don't let me double check it, but they're doing some little testing here. I set it to 1000 by 250. Then this should be obvious. Oh, 51,000 is a bit much. Yes, for testing. And you see 1000 by 250. Bang, the entire thing. And this is not the most interesting things. Of course, this is no use in this. But it uses this in combination with the setup editor function here. Can I comment a comment? It looks... Yes, I can. Let me do it. So now we also have this setup editor, and this let us compile. What here? Can I get rid of this? Wait. And now we run it. Bang! Now we have a different editor. Now we have our own editor instead. So not one function, it's a difference. Everything I say. As you can see, I am not a GUI person. But quite easy to get started without an editor and then add in an editor, and then later, which I do in a quite hacky way, but still it works nicely, is again in this for all my own, since I do it in this way. I could do it different, but I'm not going to detail that at the moment. Let me see how I do it here. Here is the same thing, the plugin, processor, first, then the plugin itself, initialization. We have a bunch of, not a bunch of, but a few clap externals, extensions, voice info, thread pool, remote controls, preset load, track info, and handle the timer to get the number of voices. And what was I looking for, by the way? What the F was I looking for? The GUI part. Here, see it, go here. I did a very hacky way. I just include another header file directly into this here. This is a very should called ink or something, probably, because it is just a header file. It looks like a normal header file, but this is a bit ugly. Private as the first thing. I don't. This is just to force me to get some errors instead if I try to include it several times. I will get a bunch of errors, but anyway, I don't remember actually. But as you can see, it just to push it. All of this is a bunch of stuff. Actually, is this 850 lines or something? Here's it set to the overlay and set to edit. So it's just two functions: set to editor and set to the overlay. The darkened thing with the where is it? Just the menus on top of it. So this is a bit ugly. But then you have the GUI in one file instead, which is a lot better. Because it's very repetitive, should probably use an editor, a GUI editor, to kind of set up your own editor instead. So you could write out everything in this. Or, which I usually do, is just subclass all this knob widget stuff. So you have your new my knob, for example, or whatever you want, and then do this on, because it's usually the same thing, text site 5, text site 5, text site 5. So it's usually the same thing over and over again for all the widgets that should be similar, so you can kind of prepare them instead and then use your own variations of them. That's the usual. For example, in this HTML, I have this widgets here. It's a knob. It doesn't do anything because I actually don't use it. This is meant to draw the waveform inside of it, of course. But I have it in but harsh here in widgets. Here's a bunch of, for example, a header widget, then a footer, then a main panel, almost everything. There's group widgets, type tabs, text. So I prepare them all and then use these in the editor instead. But at the moment, here it just going, it's a bit messy, really messy. GUI stuff is always messy. That's actually most of the plugin is actually GUI stuff. Let me try to, can I do this? Let me try to, let me show you how to compare it. This, let's take this comp site here. Let me see if I can compile it in a GUI setting. No GUI if it is prepared for it. Yes. And even better, let us see the bin directory and kill everything just to compile it in a released version so it minimized a lot. Just compare it, and the minimized version is 113 kilobytes. It just doesn't have a GUI, so it doesn't pop up. But a debug version is probably a bunch bigger. It's 600. But let's compile, so you can compile without a GUI. What? Again, we have started dropping out, but it means this video should end soon. I got through everything now, so it's now I am tired, obviously. But anyway, we can compile it to GUI just by changing the GUI type here. And let me see, what was something in here I wanted to show. The difference. Yes, there was the point being that the GUI takes so much space than no GUI, both in code and in data. So let's say here is a release. This was a release. What? Okay. Release version. No, debug version with everything takes 600. Let's say a release version was 100 and what was it? 113. And now we take an X11 GUI. It's not just an X11, but X11 is the lowest level GUI layer. So how much more data? You see compile time is, all of this is GUI stuff. Because as you said, the no GUI was, and it's all over a megabyte all of a sudden. So it's 1,000,000 bytes just for the GUI. Being able to, and the GUI is 5 knobs. But of course, there's a much more, it's entire nano, no, it's not entire one. It's the nano VG, and it's the OpenGL stuff, and it's blah, blah, blah. But which means more than 90% of this plugin is GUI. And, well, interesting or not. There's maybe a last thing I want to show before I get too tired. That is the thread pooling and actual how nicely it works. How it works, I mean. I bet in this case I have, let me see, I have some pre-compiled ones instead. All this is actually on Git. Why doesn't it? Oh no, I deleted them. Oh, they don't matter. Or should I make, no, let me go through them so that we are, why not? It's quite interesting. And let me try this shit. And let us compile a release version call it clap. We want so that the host find it, and we want to compile in clap format. We delete it so we're sure that we cheers. Let us see, we compile, let me know we have it. Where? Oh, of course, we are looking. And we will standalone. To ignore this one, this is my testing. 1.6, and we have Bitwig up and running. But to be sure, we terminate it and reactivate it. Oh, we don't need this actually because this is only for debugging. But I want to roll this one to the left, right, and left domain, and this to the right. Oh, why is it? It looks so weird here. Anyway, and we set it to OBS is going to mess up a little bit with the, you see all this code here. CPU a bit, but let us set the performance. You see all this, there's some stuttering because of OBS, but try to ignore that one. We have as a synth, but let us do this systematically. First, I want to delete it, so we are sure that we have no idea what a synth is. Get command there, okay. And then we are going into it, and also I need to look at this config base, because I'm usually not changing this very often. Let us, here I'm setting up two. First we select with threaded and not threaded at all. So the first thing we can do is set it to threaded. Now we're not threaded. Disable both of them. There will be single threaded. And we compile it and see how many voices we can handle. I know it's kind of certain, but now we should have a new one. Yeah. We can activate it. And let's see how to connect. Okay. Another interesting thing. And we drag it in. Oh, look at me. To redo a bit volume. And you will see here. Now we are playing. Here you see a number. Oh, let me zoom a bit. Here you see a number of playing voices there. 3, 0. We can push it up a bit, which is the only way to get a bunch of voices. Because another thing, let me just do things here. Now let's see. Now we are let's zoom this up a bit to see it here. Common voices. Oh, I can just turn down the volume a bit here. Let's see. And now we get a. Oh. So around 80. Now we are 85. Oh no, it's glitchy. But OBS is taking away a bit, quite a few voices. All the spiking here. Because with the threads are now fighting much more. We have these plugin threads, we have these host threads, and we have OBS threads plus the machine. So it's a bit, as you can see, they are fighting a bit for attention. But around 80, 85, let's say 80 for single threaded, terminated, single threaded plugins. And let's just set. Oh, this not set it to threaded. And if we don't have this one defined, we are using our own internal thread, which I mentioned a bit earlier. But let's see how this one is going instead. Oh, it takes 10 seconds to compile or something, 12. The release mode, so it's a bit getting there. It's finished. Let's see it. Flash to. And now is let's see. And we can do the same thing with lots of release. Let's turn down a bit. Let's play. I see a number of voices. I set it to 256 voices at the moment because it's a bit heavier synth. Oh, where should I put it? Okay. And you see, now I have 200. 256. So 256, and now it's around. Where should I see we unscientifically test it? We drag in. We can't go as slow as. On the bottom here is kind of like here in the between here, there kind of stuff. So in the seat itself, like here we are. So it's in the kind of area around the seats. Very, very unscientific. But you can see we have 256, we could have no problem at least doubling it. And now this resonator was actually calculating but returning 0. So most of the stuff is working at the moment. But let's try the clap thread pool in additional to see the last difference. Or I have to combine, of course. And this input restless. Change again. I'll try to add the chapters to this video so we can skip let's get too bizarre or whatever. I don't like it. And let's see. Did it flash? We can turn it on, and now we have to rescan everything. Drag it in again. Oh, did I set this? Yes, this actually do a lot of stuff, as you can see. See here. This is the governor in Linux. And now we have this set to use clap thread pool instead. Let me see if we have something set up. We got lots of release. We set the volume a bit lower, not so low. And we're going to hammer the voices. Oh, it takes time to get to 256. There, he's playing. And compared, as you can see, it's more or less the same, except the spiking. That's the difference, as you can see. You see this is kind of same thing, that's around the synth, a little bit lower, as you can see, it's on the bottom part all the time, no synth. Oh, get up. Come on. As you can see here, it's kind of kind of same. It's on the bottom part of it. And again, but spiking has a little kind of like the similarities between bottom here and bottom there. So let's see again. It's just because I find this very interesting. This will also be interesting to see how does it work on some AMD, how does it work on other type hardware machines that have a bunch of other plugins in them. That's also fighting with for attention. So it would probably need a bunch of testing. But let's another interesting or stupid maybe fact is that at the moment I'm not touching the priorities of the thread we're setting up in our own thread pool. We're using the defaults, which probably explains all the spiking. But I thought, should I actually start fighting with the host for the thread attention, for the CPU attention? I'm not really sure. Maybe this should be tested too. Let us see what is, and now is our own thread pool instead. Now the interesting thing is actually serious now. Oh, see here, all these indicators here. That's another thing, but that's another video. I showed it. Okay, bunch of release, less volume, and then hammer away till we get. You see, it gets more and more spiky, as you can see. Here there's a little bit, but this gets more and more. And you see, the bottom part of it is kind of in the middle. The spike, instead of being just up and down here, it's way up. So it more probably is the thread, but still playable. Almost. And the interesting is that this fully supports the overlapping nodes you can have. Now there's let me try it. Now there's only DC playing, but it's 50 of them. No. Oh, it's wrong one. Now this hard because of So now it's 20 of this C playing at the same time. You see there. Let's try a little bit more interesting. No, so that was a performance test. Let's continue a bit with our interesting synth things instead. Because it's a bit quite a few interesting things you can do already. Just because of a clap. But let me reinitialize it. I don't have the preset set up at the moment, so let us just reset it. But let's see let's do it now. I really like this, what is it called? The voice stacking features. It's, you see, but so this happens at the top, and where is it? Phone. Oh, did I click? Phone. And we want it polyphonically, so that's different. Why? This was weird. Let me try. No, where is it? Just set. Oh, of course, I'm stupid. This synth actually doesn't support modulation. I have to compile a different one. But so that's one of the steps I'm going to add in. So that's what's most of the new things. It's a bit messy. I should have prepared as usual, but I just wanted to get it done so I can concentrate on other things instead. So, as usual, same links, same license, same thing as always. If you have any ideas, comments, let me know. If you have requests, especially requests, maybe, let me know. I get really motivated by knowing that other people might use it, so don't be shy. If anyone want to help, I'm really open to it. Also to discuss how everything. So just no hesitations. Jump into it. So that's it. Let's say that it was more than enough. Much more than enough. So later.